2D player movement in Unity? Well, obviously is essential and not as easy as one would hope. I'm going to hit play here just to show you that this doesn't work at all, because we're going to add that. We're going to add some 2D player movement. So I have my sprites and all of that. I'll throw this link to all of my assets and all of that in the description. So if you would like to use them. And let's get going here. The first thing we're going to do is, so I want to point out my box collider 2D. You do need that on your script, on your sprite here, and it is on my player, right? So, and then it's also, I have on the ground a box collider, and that's why my player is balanced on my ground, okay? Other things that you need are rigid body, and I freeze my Z rotation. That is not required, okay? But those are the basics, and now let's get going with, I'm just going to hide this so we can see this, and I'm going to say script player, because I'm original, and add component. Create, there we are. All right, and so if I go back out to my assets, I have script player, and I'm just going to drop that in my scripts folder because I like to stay organized. And here we are. I'm going to open this up. And great. So this is what we're going to be starting with. Let me just... All right, and we have obviously nothing to start us off. So a few things we need to add. We have update, which is great. However, for consistent movement, we're going to need to use void fixed update. And that's one of the more complicated aspects of 2D movement. Here it is, fixed update. So what we're going to have go on inside of, let's go ahead and get some variables out of the way here. So I'm going to have private int, and I'm just going to call mine move speed, and that's going to control the left and right movement. So there we are. And with that, we're also going to need 3 booleans, private bool, which are just true false statements. So right pressed, and I'm going to try to make these as clear as possible. This one is whether or not the right arrow key is pressed. Private bool is left rest equals false. And then private, I'll do jumping as well. Bool is up pressed, and that's going to equal false. All right. So now with all of these set up, let's go ahead down into start, right? So we want to grab the rigid body of our player. I'm going to call it rigid player because, again, infinite creativity. And we want to get the component. And what are we getting? Well, we're getting the rigid body 2D that you have added. And oh, I didn't add it up here. Whoops. So we need that variable up here as well. And it's just defined as rigid body 2D space. And I'm just going to call it, like I said, rigid player. Right, there we go. Okay. Now, within update, what I will be doing is you don't want to use update for the physics of Unity, right? Physics should be done in fixed update. Fixed update runs at an actual fixed ratio, which makes the performance of physics more dependable because it happens, 30 times a second, 10 times a second. Ooh, I should unplay that. 8 times a second. However many times, it makes it happen on a regular basis. Whereas update, that's not guaranteed to happen. So we do want update. It runs more frequently than a fixed update. So what we want it for, though, is right pressed, and I'm going to set this equal to input.get keycode.right arrow. Okay. And boom. Now let's do for left. And actually, I'm just going to copy and paste this. I'm going to do Command C and Command V, Command C, Command V. Or on a Mac, it's Control. On a Mac, it's Command. Left is pressed. Up arrow. Is up pressed. Up arrow. So what this will do is update runs constantly, more times again than fixed update. And it's checking every time, hey, is the right arrow down? Hey, is the right arrow down? Hey, is the right arrow down? And if it is, this will be equal to true. which is perfect because now we can use it again, that more dependable, that fixed rate of fixed update to perform the necessary physics adjustments. So we need a vector3. I'm going to just name it POS for position, transform position, okay? And let's say if is right key pressed, okay? And what do we want to happen if the right key is pressed? Well, we want the position's X, we want X to be changed, and we want it to be equal to position.x, right? So whatever position X used to be equal to, plus the move speed we set at the top, times time.delta time. Why time.delta time? Because if they've pressed the key and 2 seconds have passed, we don't want it to only move forward, 1 pixel or however much. You need to multiply it by time to make sure that the correct amount of movement does occur. Okay. Now, I did position plus speed. A shorthand for this, right? So I'm taking the old position, adding the movement speed, multiplying it by time. A shorthand for this, though, instead of writing position x twice, you can do this, and it means the exact same thing I had before. So now let's do transform.position. Now we want to change that position to be that new position we just created. And keep in mind, y isn't changing here. We really only changed x, but we changed the whole transform so that that x component does change. And then I want to make sure that my character, this is just something fun, it might not be necessarily needed for you, but I want to make sure my renderer, my sprite renderer, right, my player's sprite here faces the right direction. So sprite renderer, I'm going to grab sprite renderer dot flip x, and I'm going to set that equal to flip false, right? Because mine's currently right way facing. Okay. Now I'm going to copy all of this. Copy. And directly under it, I'm going to paste. Because now it's really easy to turn this into left. So Control C. Wow. Control V. Right. And then instead of plus, we would want minus. Transform position, that is fine. We would want this to be true, because if they're going left, yeah, I want X to be ticked off, right, to be flipped. Okay, that is all looking good. Let's give this a shot so far. So make sure you save everything, grab that, and hit play. Boom. 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 Oops, I must have, so when I hit up, I am going left, and that is because this. That's an issue. Left. Cool, though. Alright, so now that we have that part going, let's go ahead and do a jump. Now this will just be a simple jump. Jumps can get super complicated. Is up pressed. And I'll let you play around with the gravity and figure out what you like, but just to do the basics, we're going to do a rigid player dot add force. Yep. New. We need a new vector 2. Okay. And then we want 0f for x, right? We're not moving x forward. We're going to use a jump power variable that we'll be making shortly. And then we need comma force mode 2d dot impulse. Okay, so how is that force being applied? 2d.impulse. And let's go ahead and go up here, and right under movement speed, I'm going to copy it, paste, and do, what was it, jump power? And I'm not really sure here. Let's try a 4. Let's hit save. And rah! So obviously my jump power is way too high. Maybe I do a 2, and maybe I crank up my player gravity, but you get the picture. Just make sure when you are doing movement that you're using update for the key input, because again, update runs more rapidly, and fixed update runs at a regular interval, which is the right way for physics. So make sure to check out the description for a link to all this code and stuff.